Hello and welcome back to the CyberSoc Podcast with me, Adam.
And me, Ryan.
Ryan, been a bit of an issue with the recording today?
Oh, we've had a lot of issues today.
This is our last episode. We got started and it turned out the recording software we've been using for every episode has been discontinued. So we've spent the last 40 minutes scrambling to find a new way to record this.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully it's getting to you fine. It's been brilliant.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey, Ryan. 12 episodes. Well, this is the 12th episode.
Yeah, this is the 12th and final episode of the CyberSoc Podcast. Well, hopefully not the final episode ever. We're hoping that someone from the committee next year will pick it up again, because we would love that.
Yeah, revived like a zombie corpse. Yeah, I'd love to see who does it next. It's been quite a journey of learning for us, though, I think.
Oh, yes.
I've vaguely wanted to do a podcast for a little while, and Ryan got into it a few weeks before the first episode of the podcast. And we naively began this journey thinking that we have really good conversations in real life, we're interesting, and we thought we could just record them for an hour. We thought we could do an hour of recording and people would listen to it.
Yeah, well, how this all started off was there was a podcast in the society previously. So we had kind of the idea in our head anyway, because I was a part of the committee for CyberSoc this year. And me and Adam, we were in a module where we were making a piece of software from scratch, like an entire project from scratch on our own. And I think because of that, then we were having lots of interesting conversations, right? About how you could start to implement certain things, what frameworks you can use, what tools you were going to use to build your software.
Yeah.
And as Adam said, naively at the start, we had the idea that it would be interesting to just upload raw footage of us talking, and that would be good to listen to for other people.
I can't listen to it. I would refuse till it. That is...
I haven't listened back to those earlier episodes, but I'm never going to. I don't remember them being that bad at the time, but I think we've come a long way since then.
Yeah, we've definitely come a long way. And I think we probably had some interesting points in there. We thought we'd have a whole segment on just like technical discussions.
Yes, we thought, because I was actively working on the project and you were, just thinking about it, but still you were going to do it at some point. We thought that it would be interesting to talk about kind of the low-level programming problems that I'd been having.
Yeah, I can't actually remember the intricacies of those, but I can understand them being very dull for someone else to listen to who has absolutely no context.
Yeah. I mean, what hit the nail on the head with that point for me is one of our lecturers was listening to one of those episodes where we were discussing like a low-level programming problem, and they said that they skipped that part. So it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing that then. That probably isn't interesting for other people to listen to.
Yeah, I tried to make a news segment happen.
Oh, I kind of forgot that you were doing that.
Yeah. Wait, there was, I think, one episode.
Didn't you say in one episode, like, we're introducing a new thing here, the new segment, and it just never came back?
Yeah, that was the fourth episode. I'm looking at it now. That was our longest episode. That was 58 minutes long.
Imagine listening to us for 58 minutes.
See, that's how I listen to podcasts. I just have them on in the background.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what you're listening to them for, right? I think for the type of podcast we were making here, a shorter form of podcast, I think, was a better fit than just hours of us just rambling.
Yeah. I think what works well is when we do some prep work beforehand, which I did on like the first episode and not since. Ryan's been quite good, I think. I mean, you've got some notes for today, right?
Yeah. I mean, I usually make notes for the podcast. Adam will more often than not just show up and agree to whatever I've decided.
Which is kind of how I do my life as well. I just kind of show up.
Yeah, and I tell you what to do.
It's worked well so far.
Moving on from that, looking back at the podcast, Adam, what are your thoughts looking back on it? Did you look at it fondly?
Well, I mean, part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast and I want to, continue these kind of things is because I enjoy these kind of discussions with you, Ryan. I've always found it fun and interesting. It's become more structured as it's gone on. It was more slapdash in the beginning. We've learnt a lot, and I thought that was quite interesting as well. I think what we've learnt has been interesting to me.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, I think the quality has got better and better each time. We've learned a lot about, audio editing and kind of the whole podcast process, really. And
yeah.
I think we've also improved throughout the podcast.
Yeah, I think we've definitely still got places to get, to grow. Things like the interviews that we've done, I think those are a microcosm of how we can improve as well. I think the first one we were really unprepared, but we had no idea what we were doing. The second one we got a bit better.
Although we weren't as prepared for like those episodes where we had people on, I'm still very proud of those episodes, I enjoyed those moments, and it was very interesting to speak to those people and hear some insights on their life and their thoughts on like various technical things. I really enjoyed that, and speaking to people like that isn't something you'd usually experience outside of a podcast. So I've quite enjoyed doing that with people. Hopefully that's something that we can still do.
Yeah, I think the structure of the podcast as well allows us to get into interesting issues that, there is no excuse to talk about these things sometimes other than having a chat on the podcast. And I've enjoyed that.
Yes. From a personal point of view, I was probably more nervous than you starting the podcast. It's not really something that I wanted, was to put myself out there in this way. But I feel, a lot happier about it now than I was at the start. Also, weirdly, I feel less cringed at hearing my own voice.
Yeah. I didn't want to have myself on the internet particularly, but I think after you've kind of done it, then it becomes less of a thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me. Well, it doesn't bother me at all now, to be honest. It was a bit of a bother at the start, when we were a bit more maybe shy and nervous about it.
I think the editing process has helped that as well. What we record and what comes out,
very different. Looking back at the 3 years of university as a whole, Adam, how do you feel?
Gosh, I came from it from a different point than you, I expect, Ryan, because I'd just left sixth form. I'd just been living with my parents for the last 18 years, and now I was in a new city, doing new things with new people. That's all been quite exciting. But the university part, it's been difficult with COVID and stuff. That's affected us throughout the whole 3 years. Every year's been affected by that. So in some ways it was a bit of a shame, but I liked our course. It's difficult because we can't compare it against any other courses. I've only done one degree. Not even yet have I done the degree, but yeah, I think it's been valuable in some ways. A lot of working with other people, a lot of learning in that. What about you?
Right, so when I look back at the whole university experience, I'm glad that I came to university. Like you said, it was kind of different for me. I'd had like a 5-year break, I guess, from education, from when I left school to when I came to university, and I was working as a software engineer, I guess, between then. So it was a different experience for me. I came to university because I wanted to learn. I wanted kind of more formal learning around software engineering and computer science topics. So it was very valuable to me from that point of view, But exactly how you say, it was definitely affected by COVID-19 and the pandemic. Every year of our degree was affected, from first year to third year. Particularly, I think our second year was probably the worst one.
It was fully remote. I spent half of it back at home with my parents.
Yes. And, this is to say nothing of, the lecturers, because I think the lecturers at the National Software Academy are amazing, and they work really hard, and they worked really hard to try to make it as best as an experience as they could. However, I didn't leave the flat sometimes for months.
Yeah.
I was very, isolated during that period, and it was really hard to just learn online in that regard.
Yeah, I sympathise with, everyone, I suppose, on the planet who had to deal with a completely new situation. So yeah, it was hard for everyone, really. No one had an easy time. I think our degree, it was easier than most to be remote, which was lucky, I suppose.
I wish we had kind of the normal experience. I am regretful that we didn't get that. Especially as, I'd waited 5 years to come to university. But, what can you do? On the whole, I'm still glad. And I still learned a lot throughout the 3 years.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that you learn that's not on the syllabus.
Yes. It's all about self-learning, really, and practice. We practice a lot through the client projects and the assessments that we do, which is great, to build up your experience in different frameworks and tools. But also it's about what you learn on your own then from the topics that you discuss in lectures, right?
Yeah, and it's like things like this, what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
The chats that you have with people.
For me as well, I don't know if anyone else would agree with this, but I find the reading lists very useful.
I have no answer to this.
You cannot read.
Excited for the future, Ryan?
I am excited for the future. Before I came to university, I was working as a web developer. So I had some experience anyway, but I've learned a lot through my 3 years at university. So I'm excited, put this into practice now into my projects in the future.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really useful in the world of work.
I think if you're someone who is debating whether they should come to university or not, like I was, then I think you should just do it. I've learned loads over my time here. So I think it's 100% worthwhile. If you have a degree in software engineering and computer science, then you're always going to be able to find a job, basically.
Yeah, we're quite lucky in this industry. We've got a lot of demand. Yeah. If there are any listeners who've yet to get a degree and are looking, I'd recommend going around a few different universities and talking to them, if you can, as much as possible. I thought that was really useful when I decided where I was going to go.
Speaking of the future, Adam, we have some plans.
Yes, we've got an exciting new podcast, Get Off My Backlog.
It's going to be exciting, Adam. It'll be an opportunity for us to carry on podcasting.
Yeah, we've got some new ideas what we're going to start doing over there.
We're going to keep the software kind of theme, still talk about tech and what we've been working on. What's been on our backlog?
Search for Get Off My Backlog on the platform you're using right now.
Yeah, we'll be available everywhere where you listen to podcasts. But we've got some other things we want to introduce into it. And it'll be exciting because we can kind of talk maybe a little bit more honestly about things, which will be nice.
Oh, can you say that?
I'm going to say it.
Oh, okay, yeah. We're going to do some experiments, maybe get some guests on. We're the same, me and Ryan, that you've come to know and love.
If you've listened this far, please subscribe to our new podcast, Get Off My Backlog. And thank you for listening to the CyberSoc Podcast. We're hoping that someone else will pick it up next year. But if you want to keep listening to me and Adam in the meantime, then head on over to the Get Off My Backlog podcast.
Yep, and for the last time, goodbye.
Goodbye.